Alright, so we're looking at a Dodge, we're going to say Charger Challenger base model audio package, which means it's going to have 6 speakers, 4 stereo channels, and no factory amp. And one way, if you're not sure if yours has a factory amp or doesn't, one way to check would be to, in the rear fuse box, that rear PDC, one of those fuse slots will be marked radio amplifier, maybe it's just amplifier. If that's got a fuse in it, you're going to have a factory amplifier. If it doesn't, then you don't have one. Or maybe it did, or it does, but somebody took the fuse out. But obviously, if you got the car new and there's no fuse in that slot, it did not come with a factory amplifier. And that's the one, that's the setup we're talking about, just the base audio package. Like I said, it's got 6 speakers. Your front channels are going to be the doors and the dash. You know, 6x9s in the doors, 3.5 inch up in the dash. And then it's going to have, for the Challengers, 6.5 coaxials in the back in the rear deck. The Chargers actually have 6x9s, are the same ones as what's in the door. So that's 6 speakers. But it's going to have only 4 channels. So the head unit is going to see 4 channels, even though there's 6 speakers, right? So this is where a lot of the confusion comes in. The front 2 channels will have 2 speakers each on them. And those 2 speakers will be connected on that channel in a parallel fashion, as opposed to in series. They're going to be connected on each channel in a parallel fashion. That's significant, but we'll get into that here in a minute. So the rear speakers are 6.5s, or in the Charger, the 6x9s. They're going to be 4 ohm, 15 watt speakers. So not a lot, but that's what they are. And the door will also be 4 ohm, 15 watt, but their counterparts here, these 3.5s, are going to be, again, 15 watt, but they're going to be 8 ohm. And that's where the parallel connection between these 2 speakers on the channel comes into play, right? So the head unit only sees a single speaker channel. It doesn't see the 2 speakers. It just knows that it has a speaker channel to push watts down. And generally speaking, these 3.5s, they're going to be considered close to a tweeter. They're up on the dash, they're close to your ear. They're going to take much less watts to make these things as loud. Well, let me reverse that. It's going to take much more watts on these 6x9s in the doors to bring them up to the same level as what you would hear out of the 3.5. So some people will get in trouble when they go to upgrade speakers. They'll buy maybe 4 ohm all the way around. But when you have this setup with these 2 on the same channel, and both of these speakers are 4 ohm, that means they're going to split the amount of watts coming down the channel. That would normally be okay, except with a much smaller, higher frequency speaker. It doesn't take much for it to be loud. Now you've got it getting just as much as these. All you're going to hear is the 3.5s. You're not even going to hardly hear the door speakers, the bass frequencies. That's why they've got it set up in this fashion. These are double the resistance. They're 8 ohm. These are only 4, which means they're going to split the amount of watts coming down the channel in roughly 2/3, right? So roughly 2/3 in favor of these door drivers. They're going to get more watts. The 3.5s in the dash will get fewer watts, but that's fine, because that's going to about even them out. That's how you want it. And then of course the rear ones are, they're on their own channel, so when you upgrade those speakers, you're just looking for roughly the same 4 ohm nominal impedance. But yeah, make sure you're grasping what I'm talking about here. When you go to upgrade the speakers, honestly, if you go to upgrade a base audio system, I would just leave the rear speakers in the deck, leave them what they are, the stock ones. They're not going to contribute much anyway. Replacing them with some better quality speakers probably won't be able to tell a difference. And it might even bring them, if you get a pair of speakers that are even better than these might even become more bright. I mean, honestly, just leave them stock for now, or initially. Concentrate and spend your money on the front channels. Now this whole 4 ohm versus 8 ohm thing, that can get tricky when you go to buy the upgraded speakers, because you don't find 8 ohm replacement speakers very often. They're just, almost everything's going to be 2, 3, 4 ohm. So what is really a better way to go is to look for a set of components. A component will come with a driver and a higher frequency. It could be a 6.5 and a tweeter, or Kenwood actually make their Exelon line has some components that are 6x9s and 3.5. It's a perfect replacement for these. They also make that same component line. Exelon has a 7-inch round and a tweeter, and I've tried those and they sound wonderful. But it's the same thing. The 6x9 and 3.5 would obviously be a little easier. But it's the component set that will really be easier to replace, because the component set will already have these resistances worked out for you. They're gonna have an ohm rating, a resistance. You just want to make sure. Okay, let me back up a second. So what the head unit sees, it just sees the nominal, the resistance of these two combined, which when you combine an 8 and 4 ohm on a parallel connection, you're going to get roughly 3 ohms. It's actually 2.667, whatever. So as long as if you buy a set of components, make sure they're roughly or thereabouts 3 to 4 ohm if you're replacing them in this base audio package. And most of the components you find will be probably 4 ohm, and so that's fine. You might lose a small amount of volume if you're replacing a 3 ohm setup with the 4 ohm setup, but they're going to be a high quality speaker, so that's okay. But yeah, when you're shopping for components, you just need to worry about the one value as far as the resistance goes. It's nominal impedance. It'll usually be 4 ohm. Make sure that's close, and it will be if it's 4. But if you're not going to go components, if you're going to buy these separately, keep in mind, either find some 8 ohm, or what you can do, and what I have done, if you can only find 4 ohm for the dash, you can take a resistor, and these are like, you can buy these at O'Reilly's. They sell them for, if you put LED bulbs in an incandescent blinker slot, you get the hyper flash. You can wire these resistors in to cure that. And you can also find them on Amazon, obviously. I got these on Amazon. It was a set of 4 of them. These are 6 ohm, 50 watt resistors. So if all you have, if you can only find 4 ohm 3.5s and 4 ohm doors, when you put that in, you're going to hear nothing but the dash, right? So to cure that, one way to go, this would be a labor-intensive way to do it, would be to get some of these resistors, wire this resistor in series on the dash speaker. And what I mean by in series, the speaker's going to have 2 wires going to it. Pick one, either one, and wire this in line on that wire. Normally it's the positive wire. Don't wire it in parallel on the speaker like you would on the blinkers or something, or where it crosses the 2 positive. You want it on just one wire. That will increase the ohms, the resistance. If it's a 4 and you put in a 6, now you've got a 10 ohms. It's going to be a little bit more than 8, obviously, but that will be much closer to what you want than if you had 2 4s, because all you're going to hear, I guarantee you, is the dash speaker. And like I said, I've done this. I blew a 3.5 stock speaker, ran down to Walmart and grabbed they sell them in single metras. I didn't realize, or didn't even look. It's just a 4 ohm, basically a replacement for that stock speaker. And when I put it in, that's all I could hear was that one dash speaker. So I just wired one of these in serial, solved the problem. And also keep in mind it's not actually a speaker, but this is, On these 3.5s, they're going to have usually, the stock speakers will have a basically a bass blocker wired in on the terminal, so that when the head unit's sending sound frequencies down that channel, you don't want the dash speaker to get any bass frequencies because it'll blow it. The stock speakers will have a little, not a resistor, but a capacitor, I think, soldered in line, and that will be the bass blocker. Now, any replacement speakers you buy, 3.5s, they'll usually come with a real small capacitor, and it'll be the bass blocker. You'll probably have to wire it in line yourself when you replace them. But like in the case of that little cheapo I bought, it didn't have that, and so I actually had to buy some bass blockers. I think I got these from Crutchfield, so I had to wire this. Now this goes parallel; it goes on both speaker wires. But you shouldn't really have to worry about that if you buy a good set from somewhere, Crutchfield or Amazon. They'll usually come with their own little bass blocker. Just make sure you use them. If you don't, these high frequency speakers will get the low frequencies meant for this speaker, and you'll end up blowing them. And again, that's because it's on the same channel. So that's pretty quick, down and dirty. 101. Remember, this is the base model audio package with no amps, no factory amp. If you had a factory amp, things change, because with the factory amp, it's no longer 4 speaker channels and 6 speakers. It's 6 speakers and 6 speaker channels, and plus it's got internal crossover. I believe everything's crossed over internal in the factory amp, so that each speaker only gets the frequencies that it's. No, actually, I guess these get bass, these only get the highs. I believe the rear ones will get a full signal, actually. But anyway.